Hey guys, welcome to It's Time to Wonder with your host and leader of Wonder Life Ministries, me, Ian Grammer. So, hi, welcome. So, I like to welcome you guys here because it's good to be welcomed warmly. Anyway, if you've ever gone to someone's house and you're not welcomed warmly, kind of awkward. Or at church and you don't really get welcomed by somebody on a welcome team or hospitality ministry or whatever you called it. Different churches have different callings of it. So I want to give you guys a nice warm welcome to, this podcast, to Wonder Life Ministries YouTube, Facebook, wherever you found me, and whatever else I'm posting this at. There's a lot of things I'm posting and stepping into that world of posting a lot. So yeah, here I am. So whoopee! And I want to give you guys a nice warm welcome. Now then, let's get into the episode, shall we? So in this podcast, it's called It's Time to Wonder. Very simple podcast. And for those that don't know, I am all about wonder. I'm all about being curious, all about exploring new things with God in new ways, shape, or form. Now then, that's kind of crazy because there's a lot of things to be questioning about. Because I ask a lot of questions about different things where I view things so differently through the eyes of wonder, through the eyes of how God gave me this experience of understanding the world through wonder and through being curious. And so in this very first episode, I want to talk about why should Christians, mainly, or why should anyone really, wonder about anything? Why should we be curious? Why should we be asking questions? Why should we explore? Why should we do this stuff? And so, here I am. We're going to talk about it. Ready? If you're not, then you can go somewhere else. If you are, and you want to know, then join me on this journey where I get to talk about my own stories in my own life, as well in this podcast, but also talk about certain topics that God has only talked to me about recently in my life. Things that He put me through. Being 29, I have gone through a lot of different things, a lot of different trials. So yay! But none of them I'm angry with God about anymore. Thank goodness. I got over that. But that's a story for another time. But right now, we are going to talk about why wonder and how did I really start this journey of being wonder. Like how does word wonder mean curious kind of affected my life that it is now. So yeah. So really it all started with me being young. I was very young, but I would say I was a very curious child growing up. I always had my nose in a book. I loved telling stories. I was always curious about things growing up. I was always busy. I wanted to be busy. I always played with things. I was just telling stories. I was always curious with different things. Um, so I was growing up in that world of being curious in this Christian world, in a fallen world with my mom and dad, who are both very strong Christians and encouraged me to be curious, to ask questions. My mom homeschooled us. By that I mean my two younger brothers. I have two younger brothers. And so yeah, it was just this very interesting world growing up with being curious, being allowed ourselves to be curious and to see the world two different ways. My mom and dad encouraged that. My mom and dad never was afraid to ask us do. I was asking questions, which is great. And yeah, and also grew up in this world where it's like it's okay to be curious. And really, I think there's a lot of times the world does tell us to not be curious. But also, I think there's also other points where I wouldn't say the world does. It's mainly also the church or just people don't want us to be curious. And I don't really hear this enough in the church. I don't really hear us talking about being curious, being full of wonder, being full of curiosity. Because I don't hear it enough. And to me, that's kind of sad because how we have things now in this world is because people were curious. People were full of wonder. You know what I mean? Like, so many of these people in the Bible, even people in the Bible were curious about, it was about things. Like, Abraham, Moses, the disciples all were curious about things here and there about God, about the Bible, or not about the Bible, but they didn't have a Bible back then. But they were curious about God and who Jesus was, the Savior. They were curious about so many different things about who God, even their callings. They were curious about their callings. Like one of the prime examples to me was Moses. It says in the book of Exodus where Moses literally was just minding his own business. So those who are not familiar with Moses' story, Moses was this guy who was a Hebrew born in Egypt during the time when the people of Israel were slaves in Egypt. And then for a while, they were slaves. And then Moses, that's the story for another time, Moses got into the palace and was raised as a son to the Pharaoh. To a Pharaoh. Remember my biblical facts correctly there. Anyway, Moses then struck down somebody and he ran away and killed an Egyptian, beating up a Jew. So he ran away, met his father-in-law because he got married to his wife, and became a shepherd. So yay! But during this time, as he was a shepherd, he saw something that didn't make sense. He saw a bush that was on fire. Instead of being someone who is calm or rational, he literally saw this and he saw the bush was not burning. So he was curious and he went to go see it. And that's when God spoke to him and called him to call his people out of Israel. So Moses was also very curious as a person, and yet because he was curious about the burning bush, that bush was not burning, yeah, I would be kind of curious too, or a little panicking to why that was happening. But that was the thing, though. He was not afraid, and yet he asked God questions. I think definitely one of my other favorite stories in the Bible about someone asking questions was the story of Abraham. When it's a long story with Abraham. Abraham is a very long story in the Bible, but there was a section in the Bible where with Abraham, he literally was asking God, "Will you destroy these two wicked cities?" If there was like 50 people in these cities, cities called Sodom and Gomorrah, which were very wicked, not very good people, not very good places, and where God was about to destroy it. And God said, "No, I will not." And then Abraham goes all the way down the numbers, all the way like to fives. Like he went from 50 to 40 to 30 to 40. Oh no, sorry, I guess my said that backwards. To 20, then to 10, then to 5. And it showed God's righteousness. But Abraham was willing to ask God those questions and be curious and like really ask God, are you really this righteous God as you think you are? And God's like, yeah, I am. And it's like, we got to be willing to be curious. We got to be willing to see what God can do. I look at people in the Bible in these history books we hear. History is one of my favorite stories, or my favorite subjects growing up. I love hearing these stories of people who change culture and change the world through just being curious. Scientists found things why they were curious. We found out like medicines are being made because people are curious. People are being healed because being curiosity. We got to be willing to ask God questions. We got to be willing to pursue God by asking Him questions as well. But also don't let that destroy our. But the questions don't have to destroy our faith through it. I've asked God so many questions in my own life where I'm like, God, I don't know what's going on anymore. I remember just, God, I don't know what I'm doing anymore. Because, God, I don't know if I see you. I don't know if I feel you. And God, where are you? I remember asking God so many questions about so many different things in my life. And where I also asked God about, like, how can I do this? And God's like, I'm with you. God gave me the answers in different ways, which I'll explain them in more episodes. But God allowed me to ask these questions because I was curious and I wanted answers. And I found the answers in the Bible, and I found the answers through my life. And then even throughout my other life, there were questions I asked God, like, God, why did I go through this? God, what was the point of this? And some of them I never got an answer for, still. And I have to be okay with that. I got to have faith. But also with other things in my own life, I have to be willing to say, God, I do trust you. So God, help me, give me the answer, find me the answer, help me to know what's supposed to go, what's going to happen here. Because the thing about wonder is how we get to curiosity, is how we find the answer, it's how we get knowledge, is how we get things. Like with scriptures, even scriptures has the answer to things, so to why we should wonder. With Matthew 7:7, ask and it will be given to you, seek and you will find, knock and the door will be open to you. The thing is, though, God won't always answer our questions. God will never always answer our questions. God may answer some of them. Some we may never get any answers in these questions, but we gotta be willing to say, God, I'm willing to ask you this question. I'm willing to ask for this prayer request. I'm willing to be curious with you. I'm willing to see what you can do. And there's this quote from Thomas Aquinas, who's a saint. He was a saint. He said, "Wonder is the desire for knowledge." I am full of wonder because I want to know things. I want to understand things. And as Christians should be willing to do that. God allowed us to be full of wonder for us to see the world through different ways. The question is, are we willing to wonder? Are you willing to ask God questions? Are you willing to see what God can do? Are you willing to see how he can do what he's going to do? The thing is, God may not always answer your prayer requests in the way that you think it is. He is not a genie. He doesn't answer your wishes. He doesn't do wishes. Sorry, guys. Because we broke your bubble there. But God is a God who allows us, and He loves us so much that Jesus came and died for us for our sins. We're meant to be curious. We're meant to be full of wonder. We're meant to see what God can do. We're meant to see God's love and mercy upon us. And the only way we were able to get that was because of wonder. I was able to meet Jesus in new ways because I was full of wonder. I wanted to know answers. And so I went and dived into being full of curiosity. With anything I'm working on, whether it's my film classes at Regent, yes, I'm a film major at Regent. I forgot to mention that. I want to ask questions. I want to be able to be curious and show people God through different ways, through storytelling, through podcasting, through vlogging, like I'm doing now. I'm doing both of that. Through social media, I want to show God who He is in different ways, shape, and form, through the creativity arts and through wonder. That's why I'm here. That's why I'm doing this. That's why I'm starting this ministry. That's why I'm starting this podcast. That's why I'm starting this vlog. That's why I'm starting this Instagram page, Facebook page. You name it, I'm doing it. And so my heart is to hopefully show people more who God is through my own works, through my own actions, through my own projects I want to do on social media. That includes so many other projects I have in store, and they're all about wonder, they're all about God, they're all about the Bible, they're all about life, just in different ways, shape, and form that no one's ever seen before. And so, yeah, that ends this first episode. I do want to leave you with a question, though. Are you willing to see what God can do? Are you afraid to see what God can do in your own life if you're willing to be curious, if you're willing to see the gloriness of who He is? Don't be afraid that you don't have all the answers, and that's okay. You don't. You never will on this side of the earth. I'm sorry. I'll break it to you. You won't. But God does love you. God does care about you. Jesus Christ died on the cross for you. Jesus sent His Son. God sent His Son Jesus to die on the cross for you and raise on the third day. Why? Because He loves you. He cares about you so much. The thing is, are you willing to see what God can do? Are you afraid to ask God questions? If you are, why? He will not always give you the answers you want, but He does love you. He does care about you. And He's faithful throughout everything in your life. I've seen God been faithful in my life more times than I can count. I thank God every day for what He's done in my life. And it's because I'm in full of wonder and curiosity that I'm here. I'm doing this. I am doing this because I wanted to obey God, and this is what God told me to do. Start YouTube, start a Facebook, start doing Instagram, start doing this stuff. Get out of my comfort zone, which is what I'm doing. So yeah, if you guys are willing to join me on this journey, welcome to Wonder Life Ministries in this time to wonder. And I hope you enjoy my journey as I get to go into this path with you guys, the audience, and hopefully to show you guys what God can do through my own actions. And hopefully to teach you guys some few things about who God is. So yeah, don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram or Facebook. To keep up to date, follow us on Spotify, Apple, wherever else I'm going to put this. I'll let you guys know. But yeah, don't be afraid. But also, guys, stay curious. Don't be afraid to ask God questions. Goodbye.